I'm Stephanie Arnold, and I'm the communications manager for A Capital Women's Health Clinic in Richmond. And we're here to hold a press conference. Right now, those that were arrested on March 3rd at the Capitol protest are in a hearing to decide if some of those charges can be dismissed. In addition to that, the health department was supposed to release permanent regulations today governing all abortion clinics as hospitals. So the original protest had to do with transvaginal ultrasounds, but both of these are part of the greater war on women that we're facing right here in Virginia with the current administration. So we're just taking this opportunity to mobilize the citizens of Virginia. A few of the arrestees are joining forces with a group called Oppose TRAP. It's a collectivist organization, and their goal is just to call attention to these issues and mobilize the citizens of Virginia, to combat the current situation with the McDonnell administration.
Community service?
You can choose community service, or you can choose to just be a good girl for 6 months.
And is everybody going to take that?
I can't speak for everybody. I don't know. Probably. I've got a lot of work with the clinic, so this is a hard fight.
Community service form? Is it the parameters of the
I think the parameters are just a recognized nonprofit.
And would Capital Women's Clinic qualify?
They're not a nonprofit.
But there are others.
Yes, certainly. Yeah, and things like Food Not Bombs, I think, would qualify. There are a lot of good causes out there that people can choose.
What was the move in Portland? We had a guy in there.
Well, it lasted 4 hours, so at some point it became tedious. No, but it was actually electric. It was interesting. I think the judge was interested, and I think all the lawyers were pretty interested. It's not often you get a First Amendment case, I guess, around here. So.
Especially in a general district court.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's no. Are you telling me there's not a guilty or innocent?
No.
Declaration.
No.
This was just the motions here, and I apologize. I stepped out before 2 o'clock and wasn't able to back.
Well, he didn't rule on the motion to dismiss. We broke before that. Common law made an offer, and I think that's what the arrestees are considering the offer.
And what was that offer?
There's 2 offers. They're kind of complex, and I can't really explain it, but one of them involves community service. And like I said, another one involves being good boys and girls for 6 months.
Are you planning to take, or are you at least considering the offer?
I don't. I'm really overwhelmed because I run a clinic right now. I'm really overwhelmed with abiding by the new trap regulations. So, I have no plans but to abide by the trap regulations. That's a full-time job now.
So I mean, you make a further determination later. I guess.
Sure, exactly.
If you could just take your name.
Sure, I'm Shelly Abrams from Capital Women's Health. And we're actually going to throw a press conference about just announcing that we're going to join forces with the Oppose TRAP, some of the arrestees, and we're going to work towards the June 15th public permanent hearing on regulations.
Shelly, can you spell your name for me?
Shelly with an EY, Abrams, ABRAMS.
Let's go get my other.
Andrew Fry.
When women's rights are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
When women's rights are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
When women's rights are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
When women's rights are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
When women's rights are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
When women's rights are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
When women's rights are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
When women's rights are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
When women's rights are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
Women's rights are under attack, what do we do?
I speak about the environmental
speaks all the time.
I speak.
What's the end game from your perspective?
On the night for each of the people who don't take the deal, I will put on evidence. I will argue for the court to find sufficient evidence for a finding of guilt, and I will probably ask the court to impose a longer period of observation for those people, maybe some community service, and ultimately dismiss the charges so that they too don't get convictions. I don't think I can do any better, to be honest.
And those who are taking the deal, they're paying $77 in court fees.
I don't have any idea about that. You could consult the clerk, she could tell you.
But no community service condition as part of the deal that they're taking?
Correct. No community service. The only thing people who are accepting the offer have to do is not break the law. And then in 6 months, they come back, the cases get dismissed, the charges get expunged. And
but that's not a guarantee that it gets expunged, right?
I think it is.
We have to stipulate the guilt.
I was just talking to one of them, and that protester said that they weren't really sure. I'm sorry, if it's going to get expunged or not.
You would have to talk to their lawyers, but it would certainly be the intent of the parties, including their lawyers, that it be expunged.
Okay. That's up to the judge to decide, obviously. Okay.
So I can answer your question now.
Okay, are you aware that there are 2 people that weren't even on the stairs that were arrested?
Right.
I'm aware that there were 2 other people who were arrested by the state police for trespass. Yes.
So what about the people?
Okay. You don't have a question? All right.
And you guys, I'm sorry, jump in, Larry.
So the ones that do take the deal, by taking the deal, they will be acknowledging that the state police or the Capitol Police acted within their authority.
Correct. And I am acknowledging that we have some work to do on the regulations.
And Mike, just to be clear, this is only on the trespassing. The unlawful assembly was dropped.
Dismissed.
At your office's request?
Correct. Okay. With full consent and acquiescence from the Capitol Police.
I have a question. The entire reason that the arrests were made, because what was the man's name? Who declared unlawful assembly? Robinson? Steve Robinson?
Yeah,
the entire reason that arrests
Lieutenant Robinson?
Lieutenant Robinson, he has said, I declare this an unlawful assembly. And that was the platform that they had to lay to give their authority and legitimacy. And then,
actually that's not correct.
Okay, then what's correct?
Pursuant to trespass law. Pursuant to the trespass regulations, if the police are asking, instructing, advising citizens to control their movement on property in a particular way, and the police are lawful custodians of that property, and the people refuse to abide by those requests, then it invokes the authority of the trespass statute. So there were 2 avenues, if you will, that Lieutenant Robinson could have proceeded with. One is trespass, which I consider to be the valid and the right. The other was arguable unlawful assembly, and I guess in his mind, he's thinking that they are 2 equally viable crimes. I dismissed the unlawful assembly because it was
So,
how do you feel about that?
How do I feel about that? No clear feelings, so I have to think about it.
But my job as Commonwealth's attorney is to make sure that the laws are properly enforced. And under these circumstances, I think if you've been paying attention, hopefully you've heard me say that what was important to me was that everyone acknowledged that the Capitol Police lawfully exercise their authority under the trespass statute.
What about the state police or Richmond police?
I don't believe that at all.
If the state police had given instructions to the 2 people who were arrested, and those 2 people refused to follow the instructions.
I followed instructions.
Are you going to let me finish?
Okay, go ahead.
And if they refuse to follow the instructions, then they would be subject to the same analysis with the original authority.
Well, what if I complied and I was still arrested?
Then you will win when you take that case to trial.
Did you know that on February 20th we were not asked to leave and we just dispersed organically when everyone decided to?
Right.
So when the judge asked, well, what would have happened if the police hadn't have come? It wasn't brought up that, we would have dispersed organically like we did on February 20th.
I think one of the things that's going to come about in the revision process is making sure that there is consistency in the application of the permit grant. So however we change it, whether we expand locations beyond the bell tower, we're going to apply it uniformly. That may mean that some more people get redirected, Or it may mean that fewer people get redirected because the regs are clearer.
Would we then be able to appeal that?
Appeal what?
Just to say, I mean, if you're going to change it afterwards, why not just have the rules?
Because
there were no
these
rules
cases proceeded under 119, the trespass statute.
When women's rights are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up.
When women's rights are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When women's rights are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When women's rights are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When women's rights are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When women's rights are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When women's rights are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When women's rights are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
No access, no choice. No access,
No choice.
no access,
No choice.
no access,
No choice.
no access,
No choice.
no access,
No choice.
no access,
No choice.
no access,
No choice.
Bullshit.
no access,
No choice.
Okay, go.
Those who were arrested on March 3rd for protesting the transvaginal ultrasound bill on the Capitol steps. I was there on March 3rd because I wanted to make it clear that I make decisions about my body, not Bob McDonnell, not Ken Cuccinelli, not Bob Marshall. When the Capitol Police dragged me off those steps, I guess they made it clear that they think otherwise. And the legislative session may be over, but the war on women is not over. On June 15th, Board of Health members, the majority of whom were appointed by Bob McDonnell, will vote on the TRAP regulations requiring abortion clinics to comply with medically unnecessary, politically motivated codes aimed at forcing clinics in Virginia to close their doors. Just as the Capitol Police selectively enforced the rules to prevent me from protesting on March 3rd, when bankers, gun lobbyists, and politicians hold events on those steps all the time, McDonnell and Cuccinelli are selectively enforcing rules to prevent Virginians from having any access to safe legal abortions. Medical professionals agree that an abortion done legally is already one of the safest procedures available in medicine. They're safer than many plastic surgery, dental, and laser vision procedures, but plastic surgery, dental, and laser vision clinics aren't included in these regulations. McDonnell and Cuccinelli's regulations punish, not protect, especially for low-income women who don't have the resources to take time off work and travel to another state to have a safe legal procedure. It's been widely cited in the media that most Virginia abortion clinics will comply with TRAP regulations, but this is false. The reality is that these clinics, which are mostly small businesses, have only applied to be inspected and now face hundreds of thousands of dollars in renovations over the next 2 years in order to meet the new standards. Make no mistake, if we allow TRAP regulations to take effect in Virginia, clinics will close across the state. In Mississippi, the governor openly announced how proud he felt that TRAP regulations had made it practically impossible for women to access abortion in his state. And Virginia is next. But we can make a difference. The Board of Health, the governor, and the Attorney General all need to sign off on the regulations before they become permanent. On June 15th, I'll be at the Board of Health meeting to demand that they let the regulations expire. Thousands of people came out on March 3rd to stand against the ultrasound law, and it's time for us to come back again.
Okay, can we ask you how to...
Wait, I have a statement and then
okay.
we'll take questions. My name is Shelly Abrams. I'm the executive director at a local abortion provider, Capital Women's Health. I'm very excited here to stand here today and announce that I and many of my other fellow arrestees are joining forces with the activist group Oppose TRAPs. Just as we stood against McDonnell's ultrasound bill, we will stand against McDonnell's overreaching and absurd abortion clinic regulations on June 15th. On this date, the Virginia Board of Health will meet and will vote to accept, amend, or reject permanent regulations making clinics become hospitals. Our message is clear. The women of Virginia are tired of being bullied by the McDonnells, the Cuccinellis, and the Marshalls of this state. The women of Virginia are not stupid. We know that these regulations have nothing to do with our safety. We know that when the men in charge of our government tell us we have to have a vaginal ultrasound or that clinics have to become hospitals, that it has nothing to do with our safety and everything to do with shaming us and punishing us. Today is a very important day for the women of Virginia. Not only have my fellow arrestees and I stood before the courts of Richmond to declare we are innocent of a crime for simply sitting peacefully on our Capitol steps, but today the Board of Health of Virginia was supposed to release the permanent regulations to regulate clinics as hospitals. Now I hear that these regulations are sitting on the Attorney General's desk right now, so it's just another example of Mr. Cuccinelli playing doctor instead of lawyer. We demand, after the horrible ultrasound bill, rubber stamped by Governor McDonnell and King Cuccinelli, that these men stop playing doctor. We urge the men and women of Virginia to stand with us on June 15th at the Board of Health meeting, just as they stood with us on the Capitol grounds. The war on women will not stop until we stand up and say, enough is enough. Thank you.
Yeah. Woo! Woo! Spokesman for the group here? Are you the spokesperson?
Well, I guess you could call me the spokesperson.
Okay, great. And may I have your name again, please?
My name is Shelley Abrams.
How do you spell that?
S-H-E-L-L-E-Y Abrams.
How do you feel about the outcome of this hearing and why?
Wait, how do I feel about the outcome of this hearing? You know, I'm disappointed. I don't think we did anything wrong.
Can I call you right back?
I'm sorry, what? Anyway, I don't think that we did anything wrong. I think it should have been dismissed, but clearly they're going to take under advisement the rules that say that people cannot voice their concerns on the Virginia Capitol steps, which is highly unreasonable.
Well, they said it was against the law. So.
Right. I disagree.
All right.
What are you going to do now as far as the hearing today? What's your decision?
Oh, at the hearing? Well, I'm sorry. A group of arrestees now are going to move forward and fight against TRAP. The permanent regulations are coming out to regulate clinics as hospitals, and we're focusing on June 15th, putting all of our effort into that.
Are you accepting the plea deal that was offered, though?
You know, that's between me and my attorney right now.
Do you feel that it was fair?
I think it should have been dismissed.
We're actually here to talk about the TRAP regulations, though. That's what this press conference is about. That's what Shelley and Camille just talked about. So that's really what's on all of our minds right now, is the fact that the majority of abortion clinics in this state are facing closure if these regulations go through.
You mentioned some other right-wing people and foundations who you feel like don't have women's rights in your best interest. What do you have to say to them, and what do you want them to know today?
We're going to keep fighting back. And the regulations are unfair, they're unnecessary.
I mean, you have to understand, we're fighting our own government here. Our own government is inflicting unreasonable regulations to try to outlaw a procedure that the Supreme Court stated is legal. Okay, so we're essentially fighting the true definition of the man, which is Cuccinelli, McDonnell, Matt Cobb. You know, it's an enormously overwhelming fight, and I'm just so glad that I have a lot of my fellow arrestees who I know are strong women and men join me with this fight.
Do you believe you have a chance of winning this fight?
I feel like people need to be made aware of the implications of these regulations, and I feel like even the Board of Health, they do not understand that they can reject parts of these regulations. They can amend, they can add. They don't have to listen to King Cuccinelli, who has a clear agenda. He stated he doesn't like abortion and he wants it gone. So we're here to hopefully in the next 3 weeks educate the public and the Board of Health and say, look, if these don't sound reasonable to you, change them.
How effective do you think you can be? I mean, this is a fight that occurred in many respects last September. There were motions to change temporary regulations, which were not accepted. It seems like it's full speed ahead. I mean,
well, I think last September the women of Virginia did not realize what we were up against. They didn't realize the extent of the war on women. And now, after the ultrasound bill, the obscene transvaginal ultrasound bill, I think a lot of women in Virginia were woken up. And I'm calling out to them to stand with us to fight this.
The Board of Health still has to vote on it. Cuccinelli and Bob McDonnell still have to sign it too.
Like I said, it was the permanent regulations were supposed to be released today, but they're sitting on the Attorney General's desk. He's playing doctor, and he's a lawyer. Okay?
Shelley, will your clinic have to close under these regulations?
It's uncertain. No one wants to admit they'll quit. Clinics, especially independent clinics, we're tough birds. I mean, we deal with protesters, We deal with all kinds of crazy stuff, and you know, nobody wants to admit defeat. There have only been a few people, and I'm not going to name names, that have told me in private that they will shut down. We're going to do the best we can to not shut down, but like I said, we're fighting our own government. Our own government is trying to get rid of us, and we're just small businesses. So I don't know how small businesses fight the entire government of Virginia, but we're trying.
Shelley, can you spell your last name for me?
Abrams, A-B-R-A-M-S.
And what city you work
I'm the executive director of Capital Women's Health.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for standing with us. We appreciate it. Woo! Good job. I mean, today we were in the courthouse for 4 hours. I had no idea. All of our attorneys presented a motion to dismiss. There was a lot of arguing back and forth between the judge and the attorneys. And finally, at about 2:30, the Commonwealth asked for a recess and then offered us a deal. And I believe the deals are we can either be good boys and girls for 60 days maybe, or we can do community service, 25 hours.
What is your feeling of the deal today? What's your opinion of the deal today?
What's the opinion of the deal?
Yeah.
I mean, it's disappointing. I think that the charges should have been dismissed. I think that we were just sitting on the Capitol steps, not threatening anyone, just expressing ourselves. And we were never a threat to the police or anyone around us.
Thank you, Shirley.
Can I ask a couple questions? When you decided to go ahead and do the demonstration on the steps, was there a general consensus just to sit there and just make your presence known?
Well, I didn't know anyone, so there was never any general consensus. I met everybody on the bus, so no, there was no general consensus.
So it wasn't an organized thing. It was just a bunch of people that had the same frame of mind.
Absolutely not organized. Yeah, the majority of us did not know each other.
They say there was like
okay, and with the different lawyers, what was did they go over the same details? Do you think that might have been the reason why the judge wasn't so willing to give you a dismissal?
No, I think that the judge was actually very interested in the case and interested in the arguments. I mean, I think it's probably not often that a First Amendment case comes in Richmond court. So there were a lot of people in there that felt very passionately. I think the judge feels passionately about the law, and our lawyers felt passionately about our case.
All right. So the court is in recess. So that mean you have to come back and sit through another 6 hours of court time? Or?
No, basically we were all offered a deal, and I suppose if we choose to take the deal, there won't be much more coming down here.
But it isn't that you were blocking.
Given your experience with this time of just sitting there at the steps, do you see yourself continuing in that process of protest?
Well, I've been protesting all my life. I've never been arrested before. You know, I feel like we didn't know each other. It wasn't planned. It's just something that happens. I think sometimes people are moved and they don't move.
Absolutely, I stood on the steps. Thank you. I really appreciate it.